Welcome, everybody. Happy Sabbath. So it's good to see Austin, Chelsea, and Alex. I feel like I haven't seen them forever, but it's because we've been gone and they've been gone. Amanda. We're excited to have Nate and his wife with us today to listen to the words they have to share. I'm just excited to be part of this church. I feel like the more I get to know the people here, the more I realize how much we have to offer to society. So I think this is a great, great thing that we're doing, and hopefully we can get more people to share what we're trying to do. So if everybody wants to pray with me today. Dear Father, I'm so excited to be part of this church and to this family that is growing every week when we come. I hope that we all listen to what has to be said today, and I hope that we learn, and I hope as we go out into the world that we're able to share what we've learned with the people that maybe have not, that we can be a light for people in the darkness. In your name I pray, amen. We're going to do a welcoming song for those who haven't been here before. It might just be you guys. We just kind of get up, greet the people that are here, shake their hand, hug them if they're comfortable. If you're not comfortable with either, just say happy Sabbath.
I think Alex was going to skip it.
I know he was.
He was going to skip it.
I was just going to get into it, but let's do it. All right, get up, greet somebody.
Let's greet somebody.
Hello, everyone. So, how many of us like hymns? So last night when Chelsea and I were practicing, I told Chelsea, so we're going to start in Switzerland, and then we're going to go to Italy, and we're going to end in Ireland. These are where the hymns were written. All very old hymns, very classic, heartfelt hymns. For any of you guys who ever talked to me, you guys know that for me, the older the song, the more sacred the song. But that's just personally for me. And the songs we're going to sing today have to do with God's greatness, His wonder, and God's beauty, and opening our eyes to see Him everywhere. So we invite you to pray with us here one more time, and then we'll just get right into it. Heavenly Father, we want to give you thanks for your presence. We want to give you thanks for this winter's day. Not really, but we want to be grateful that we have a day. Lord, we pray that although it's cold outside, that you may warm our hearts, that you may keep us warm indoors. And Lord, thank you for the privilege it is to worship you. And as we raise our voices, we ask that you receive our worship. And we pray this in your name. Amen.
My God, how great
favorite line of this hymn is the last stanza. And last week, when I think it was 2 weeks ago, when Denard spoke, he spoke on Isaiah 6. And he made this point about when God gave the vision to Isaiah, when Isaiah sees God sitting in his throne, that the king of Israel had just died, and there's this kid who is just taking the throne, so things are pretty bad. If you see a 6-year-old take the throne, it's like, oh, shoot, what's about to happen? And Isaiah sees this vision. He sees God seated on his throne with the train of his robe, signaling the ancient world of an undefeated king seated on his throne. So the message, part of the message of the vision was that although there's chaos in the nation, God is still king. God is still on his throne. You don't need to worry. God is there. And the last line of this song says, this is my Father's world, so let me never forget that though the wrong seems off so strong, God is the ruler yet. And this is my Father's world. Why should my heart be sad? The Lord is king, let the heavens reign. God reigns, let the earth be glad. God is still on his throne.
This is my Father's world, and to my listening ears, all nature sings and around me rings the music of the spheres. This is my Father's world. I rest beneath the thought of rocks and trees, of skies and seas, expand the wonders wide. This is my Father's world. The birds their carols raise, the morning light, the lily white, declare their Maker's praise. This is my Father's world. He shines in all despair. In the rustling grass I hear him pass. He speaks to me everywhere. This is my Father's world. Oh, let me never forget that though the wrong seems on so strong, God is the ruler yet. This is my Father's world. Why should my heart be sad? The Lord is King, let the heavens ring. God reigns, let the earth be glad. The Lord is King, let the heavens ring. God reigns, let the earth be glad.
Heavenly Father, we want to thank you that your presence is always with us. You are big, you are mighty, you are strong, you are wonderful. And you don't just give us your word, but you give us your ear. And you hear us. And we thank you for that. And now, Lord, we want to open our ears to hear you speak. Speak to us now. Praise in your name.
So before I begin, Colby just texted me. He said that he misses you and that he loves you all. And he said, Fred, you need to grow back your afro. Yes,
Black baby, black baby.
no, it's a smiley face with tears coming out of his eyes while he's laughing.
Thank you.
Okay. So I have this good friend of mine. He was looking for a home in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He just got married, and there was a baby on the way, and so he found this house and had a pool in it. And the weird thing is that he actually didn't know how to swim. Something happened to him when he was younger, and he kind of had the fear of swimming, and he thought, what would be the best way to overcome this by buying a house with a pool? So he buys this house that has the pool, and he didn't realize how much work it is to open a pool after it's been winterized, and so he didn't open it up right away. He had the baby with his wife, and they had this new family, and he finally said, this is the year I'm going to open the pool. And so in the process of opening the pool, all that work he put into it, he's on the final touches, he's vacuuming the pool, and he puts his son in one of these little contraptions that teach how to walk, teach the baby how to walk. It kind of surrounds with this plastic thing, and there's wheels. He puts him in there because there's a walkway around the pool. But the pool has this high lip, so he figures it's going to be safe because there's no way that the baby could make it to the pool. And so he's vacuuming there in the shallow end, and all of a sudden, he hears a splash. And he looks down in the deep end of the pool, 10 feet down, his son is laying there. And he thinks, what am I going to do? He thinks, should I save my son and risk my life, or save my life and let my son perish? He doesn't think too long. He dives in, he swims to the bottom of that pool, he scoops up his son, and he kicks and thrashes over to the edge of the pool, only to accidentally push himself back into the middle of the pool. He thrashes over again, this time more carefully, hoists his son up onto the edge of the pool, and fearing for the worst, getting ready to do CPR, his son is laying there breathing, doing perfectly fine. I'm so glad my father jumped into the pool that day to save my life, otherwise there would be no testimony. And so I'm going to share my story, and it's sometimes when I share it, people say they are amazed at all the things that have happened to me, but each and every little step of the way, I won't be able to share everything. It's just God working in my life. So it's really not my testimony, it's the testimony of Jesus when he's done in my life. And so before we get into it, I just would like to pray. And so before I pray, I would like you to pray. Just quietly, silently, just pray for 3 things. Pray number 1, that you would be blessed by my story. Pray number 2, that the people around you would be blessed. And pray number 3, that I would not glorify sin, but that I would be glorifying Jesus. So quickly pray for those 3 things silently, and then we'll pray out loud, and then I will tell the rest of the story. Heavenly Father, I just ask that when I talk about what happened in my life, that I will be glorifying you, that sin will not be glorified, the devil will not be glorified. Things happened that were not to your glory, but you worked through them. You made all things work together for good, even though they were not good. And that somehow, in some way, you did something miraculous in my life, in the life of my family. And I praise you for that. So let this be a blessing to myself again as I share it, as well as to all here. I pray for this in Jesus' name. Amen. So, fast forward a little bit. My parents had a second son, and we lived in the suburbia of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Thought everything was great. Thought everything was going good, and loved life. I just thought it was perfect. I mean, in my understanding of what perfection is, I just thought everything was great. Until one day that my mom was driving me to the grocery store, only a couple miles away, and in the process of going to the grocery store, my mom started to cry and sob and weep, and she pulled into the parking lot of the grocery store and just sat there crying And I am sitting there awkwardly wondering what is going on. Because mom's job is to stop me from crying. I don't know how to do that to mom. And so basically she sat there and sobbed and cried until she was able to get composure, calm down enough to turn to me and say that she's sorry for breaking down like that, but that dad is going to jail and that they're getting a divorce. And so what I didn't know was that my dad was actually a drug dealer, and he ended up loving drugs more than my mom, which led him to find a mistress that also loved drugs, because even though my mom and dad would smoke pot, when it got the heavier stuff, my mom said, no, I'm not going that far. My dad just kept going down that road and ended up breaking up the marriage, and he ended up meeting up with another woman, and that was just too much. Then he got caught by the police, and everything came tumbling down, and what I thought was a perfect life was shattered. And so I recouped, my brother recouped. It affected us, but we got used to the fact after my dad got out of jail that there was 2 sets of Christmas presents and 2 sets of birthday presents. And because my dad felt so guilty, he spoiled us. So we had like every video game system that came out and all these toys. So there was perks to the shattering of the family. And my mom and dad handled it well, and they always said that they still loved each other. My dad said it was the worst mistake he's ever made. And so some of the problems that could happen from that were mitigated by my parents. I don't know how they were able to do it, but it helped. But it still affected us. But that's just one bad thing. That's when I started realizing the world wasn't perfect. But when I got to the point that the next tragedy that happened, my whole world came crashing down, and this is what happened. My mom and my brother, I remember, were leaving out of the house when I was 16, and they were fighting, and it was kind of a commotion, and I was playing video games over the modem with my friend, and this is back when the modem was connected not through the cable, but through the telephone line, so it would make the weird noises before you hooked up. And so I was playing my friends on the modem, and it was like one of the early first-person shooters, and I was really good, and I was really whooping on him, and my brother and my mom leave, and they're arguing, and I don't know what's going on, and then all of a sudden, the game's being interrupted. And see, what would happen is when you have this thing called call waiting, which it's like when people used to tell me 8 tracks, now call waiting is like the 8 track. Anyways, back in the day, there used to be an annoying sound that when you call someone, it meant the line was busy. Now, there was this new invention that you could click over, and it was an awesome thing. It was my mom talking on the phone, and my friends that wanted to play with me would never be able to get in, so we got call waiting almost as soon as it came out, and it was a great thing, because otherwise I would have had no friends, because my mom was on the phone all the time. Anyways, but the problem with that is that when you play video games over the modem, when the people call, they would interrupt your game. And it's super annoying, especially when you're whooping on somebody, and all of a sudden you pause and they don't, you die. So it was really annoying, and so my friend was making a comeback, and because the game was pausing, I frustrated, finally answered the phone, and they wanted my dad. And I just was thinking, it sounded serious, but I was thinking someone like a debt collector or something like that. So I was like, I don't want to deal with this. And I was trying to blow them off, but they finally got my attention. They said, listen, you need to find a way to get a hold of him, because your mother and your brother were in a serious car accident, and he needs to get down here right away. So, of course, I knew how to get a hold of my dad. I got a hold of him. He came rushing over. Now, I have to tell you a little about my dad. My dad's a rough biker man. Yes, I have the big beard, but he was also 6'1", wide build, big, ZZ Top, Hell's Angels looking man, right? Tough guy. Never saw him cry in my life. I remember one time he was unloading the Harley Davidson out of the back of the pickup truck, and his friend let go of it. He went to grab it to stop it. And he accidentally got his thumb caught between the spokes and the fork, and it tore his thumb almost completely off. It was just dangling there. He just grabbed it, gritted his teeth, walked into the house. I remember seeing him telling my mom, we have to get to the emergency room. No crying, no tears, just gritted his teeth, just tore his thumb off, and didn't even shed a tear. And so they rushed off to the emergency room. However, that day, when he came rushing over, when he came into the door, I was worried. When he came into the door, he was like weeping. I haven't seen my dad cry. He was weeping because he saw the wreckage and he thought there's no way anyone could survive. And even though he made the mistake and messed things up with my mom, he always only loved her and loved, of course, my brother. And it tore him up to think that they both could be gone. And so we rushed them to the hospital, and we were sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting forever. And finally, they wheeled my brother by, and they said, he's in a coma right now, but he's going to be okay. He'll come out in a few days. And then we waited some more. And longer and longer and longer. And finally got to see my mom move from the emergency room up into intensive care. And when she was brought by, there was several nurses, like there was an entourage holding all these instruments, wheeling all these things. There was a halo around her, her head was shaved. She looked almost more robot than woman with all these instruments on her. And they weren't very clear, and it sounded like, yeah, she's in a coma, we're not sure when or if she'll come out. And so I didn't know what to do. And to this day, as a minister, as a pastor, I struggle with hospital visitation because of the trauma that I had in the hospital. It's a part of my ministry. You'd think, oh, maybe you would want to be a chaplain. That'd be like, it'd be the worst thing for me. I just, when I set foot in the hospital, I still get problems from that day. And so, long story short, my mom did come out of the coma 6 months later. My brother did come out 2 days. And it's not like the movies, it's quite the traumatic experience watching people recover from that kind of a brain injury, and it was awful. But while that was going on, I am struggling with faith. I was raised going to church. My mom went to church. My mom was one of the best Christians I've ever met to this day. You know, no, she wasn't raised in the church that I belong to now, but like I would still put her Christianity even before that against anybody. She was just a good person. And all of a sudden, she's in a coma in between life and death. My world is thrown upside down, and somehow I'm supposed to turn to her God for that. I'm surrounded by friends who were doubting, and basically, I just didn't know what to do. And so the church that she brought me to, I was going to become an adult member of the church in this process called confirmation. And the bishop was in town, and they were all set. And during this process, it happens, and they call me up and say, hey, the bishop's here, he's ready, and you can come and you can be confirmed. And I just simply asked the question, it's like, I don't know if I believe in God anymore. And the person on the phone, I don't know why they said this, but this is what they said. It doesn't matter. And I just looked at the phone, and I just said, what? And I just slammed it down, which is something, again, that cell phones just don't have the same. This doesn't have the same. They almost need an app so that you can do something with that motion to make it, and make it click like that. It just doesn't have the same effect. But when I slammed that phone down, it wasn't just on the church. It was on God. I was done, atheist. I made my decision. How could I believe in a God that would do that to a follower? And I left. I left faith, and I walked as fast as I could away from God. It started out just kind of intellectual, and then it became into behavior, rebellious, angry, and where I was, Christianity is the only way you can be popular. The school I went to, Granville, if you were cool, you went to the Young Life meeting on Wednesday, and I just didn't care. I just rebelled against it and went down that path and got angrier and more bitter and darker in my walk. And so I'm going through that, and I look at it and actually calculate the years. I did that at 16, and I ended up becoming a Christian again at 20. But those 4 years were dark. The kind of the symbol of the darkness is that my final car, before I get converted, I ended up buying a hearse. You guys know what a hearse is? You know, a funeral? Not because I wanted to work at it. I didn't work for a funeral home. That's just the car I drove. And it's kind of symbolic of where I was. I was driving around in a car that used to carry dead people. I got a used one that was used for that purpose. And so that is what I'm driving around in. That's just kind of a statement of where I was. I was kind of a cross between a punk and a goth. So gothic punk is kind of what you would consider me. And during that time, I tried to find fulfillment in lots of things. I was in the marching band. We won the some national competition my sophomore year. I played football, so I also did the jock thing. We won the state championship my junior year. Tried doing a punk rock band, doing all these different things, got great grades, and then also started to turn to substance abuse. Doing all these things, excelling at all of them. I think it's Solomon who said, whatever your hand finds to do with all thy might. I did that, I just wasn't doing it for God. And so I really resonate with the book of Ecclesiastes because it kind of talks about doing and trying all these things and trying to find purpose. And that's what I did. And it left me empty. My parents, when they got married, they went for their honeymoon. They went to a place called Mardi Gras in New Orleans. So there was this kind of mythical, romantic idea about going there. And so what should have been my sophomore year of college, I dropped out because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I ended up going to Mardi Gras for spring break. And while there, I ended up taking this drug called LSD. And what happened was I was a little stoned, a little drunk, and I ended up getting a hold of this vial. And the guy, it was weird. I was looking for marijuana, and my friend and I, this guy ends up saying, hey, I got better stuff, come with me. We're sitting in his van, and he pulls out this vial, and he says, it's straight from the lab, it's pure, it's the best stuff you can get. You can't find this anywhere, because a lot of it's diluted when you get it. And he gives me this. And I'm not all that coordinated, and so I undo the vial, I take the dropper, and I fill it up, and he said, just take a couple of drops, and you'll be set for the rest of the night. And clumsy me just squirts the whole dropper onto my tongue. So a dropper holds 20 to 50 drops. So 20 to 50 hits of pure LSD, something I've never done before. And 8 hours, 10 hours later, I wake up in the hospital strapped down with amnesia. Didn't know what happened, didn't know what was going on, started to piece things together and started to remember things. And started being kind of freaked out because it was quite the spiritual experience. And so basically what happened, when I started recollecting what happened, remembering, the culmination is, all the rest of it is glorifying a drug that you should never ever do. But the final stage of it, I thought it was Satan. And then I was looking into this spiral, and I'm floating into it, and this euphoric experience would wash over me as I'm going down into the tunnel, and a melodic voice said, if you just come here, I'll give you these powers the rest of your life. And then I'm like, this is great, why not? So I'm heading into the tunnel, and all of a sudden this small voice says, hey, you don't want to do that. And when I listened to that voice, I would stop and be pulled out. And it was kind of a tug-of-war thing, back and forth, back and forth. And then finally the smaller, softer voice, a little bit more firm, was like, you really don't want to do this. And I said, why not? And in answering that, the scene changed, and all of a sudden, everything is pitch black, dark, and I'm sitting in a seat in the thinking man position, thinking I've been here for thousands of years, what's 1,000 more? And the next thing I see, I'm all of a sudden teleported into the future, and I'm on some monster, and there's a parade, and everyone's worshiping me, and I'm thinking, yeah, this is great. And I look up into the sky, and fire's coming down. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want this, right? I'm like, no, I'm out of this, I don't want it. And everything snaps back to reality, and all of a sudden, I'm standing on some trolley tracks looking head on at a trolley that's like blaring its horn telling me to get out of the way. And I'm like, whoa, and I jump out of the way right at the last minute, saving my life. So those powers literally wouldn't have lasted very long if I stayed there much longer. And I ended up running into a hotel and just throwing myself on the floor in the fetal position, and they came to pick me up and took me to the hospital. And so I'm thinking of all of that and running through that in my head as I'm leaving the hospital, just signed my name, walked out of there, and reflecting on this. The problem with LSD is that it stays in your system. So even though I came out of the trip, which is lucky because a lot of people don't come out of those things, I would have what's called flashbacks. And so when I'm trying to get my life together after this terrible overdose, I would start having flashbacks, and I would be working at the grocery store, and the Campbell soup cans would turn alive and try to bite me, like right where the red and white of the label, it would open up like a mouth and try to bite me. And I know it's in my head, but it's what you see, and so it's like freaking me out. So I would drive home, and the trees would bend over and try to grab me, and I'd make it home, and I'd go into bed, and I would just fall asleep crying, just hoping that this would stop. And then I'd wake up and everything would be normal, but it was like every day I was worried that all of a sudden something like that would happen. And so I'm falling apart, I'm trying to find answers, and I'm looking into self-help stuff and seeing videos, maybe Buddhism, maybe some kind of something. There's got to be something that can get me back right. And I'm just thinking maybe I should just check myself in to a facility. And I ended up having an awful flashback that lasted hours. And my mom was back home. Interesting side note, my parents actually got remarried. My dad realized that he needed to take care of his wife and kids. He was at the hospital every day visiting my mom. And he got sobered up, got cleaned up, and he basically said, I gotta take care of the family. My mom, after the brain injury, is not able to provide marital benefits, and he chose to marry her anyway because he loved her and he loved his kids. And so even though I wouldn't go to the wedding because I'm still mad at my dad, it affected me, and it showed me what real love is. Real love is sacrifice for the other. He was making good money. His other drug dealer buddy, his wife left him, and he's like, for good riddance, and he was hanging out with strippers half his age. My dad doesn't go with him. He says, I'm going to marry my brain-injured wife so I can take care of her and the kids. And so that was an early example of love, and he was not a believer. So one of the first instances of sacrificial love that I've ever seen was from my father. And so my parents are living with me at home. They're seeing me fall apart. My brother's seeing me fall apart. And I'm falling apart, and I finally just say to my mom, I'm sorry, I'm such a terrible son. Let's go back to church. And so after that subsided, my dad talked me out of it because he's talked a lot of people out of bad trips. The next day, I ended up going to church, and I'm sitting in the back of church, and we are listening to all this stuff, and I'm just like, this is just so dead, so boring. And the guy gets up to talk, and there's these old cartoons called the Charlie Brown cartoons, the Peanuts. And when the kids would listen to the parents would make this sound like, whoa, 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 whoa. And that's literally what the sermon sounded like to me. And I'm like, I can watch documentaries, I have like a high grade point average. This guy's making no sense, this is not helping. So I actually, during the sermon, I just knelt down and started crying. And I just said, God, if you're real, if you exist, show me. And I just saying that over and over, show me. If you're real, if you exist, show me. Show me the way. Like, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. And after I prayed all that, I just dumped it all out. I had a peace. Not completely, but I just felt like, okay, that was good to release that. Okay, move on back to life, figure out how to handle this. started working again. Tuesday morning, so that was Sunday night, Tuesday morning, I get done with work. I'm sitting in the couch watching, not really watching TV, I just would flip through the channels, couldn't focus on anything. Just blah, blah, blah. I'm like, man, this is really boring. We have all these channels and there's nothing to watch, and all of a sudden there's a knock on the door. And I get up and I walk over to the door and I open it, and there's these two girls and a guy, and literally one's like, they're nervous, and one's like twirling her hair, the other one's smacking her gum, and I'm just, what is this? And they're like talking, and it finally like focuses in, and they're like, they're trying to invite me to some religious meeting. Now you have to understand that my version of Christianity at school was the popular girls, which they reminded me of, would go to these Christian clubs, but they were like, they had a reputation for being not so good. They were, I don't know what to say, they were promiscuous, yes. In fact, one of my friends who was a believer tried to get me to go to his religious youth group because he said the girls were easy. And it what made it worse, because I'm like thinking, if I want to do this God thing again, I definitely don't want that. That's not the reason why I want to go. And then one other time they had a rock concert at the church, and they had a mosh pit. And then they said, yeah, they're going to have a mosh pit. And I was thinking, I mean, I'm listening to like Marilyn Manson and White Zombie and Korn, and I've been to like mosh pits. And I'm like, why would I want to go to a Christian one? They're like, oh, they pick you up afterwards. Instead of stomping on you, and I'm like, oh, so it's moshing for wimps. You know, like, I was just, no, I don't. So when they're coming, this kind of, like, Christian's a dirty word in my head. I know I tried going back to church. It was wah, wah, wah. I was like, this, I don't want this. Get out of here, you're not going to help me, is kind of what they're dealing with. And in their nervousness, they're coming across, really did see it, and it's just bad connection. And I'm going to about to slam the door, and then when the guy is just seeing something that he thinks I really need this, and so he grabs the flyer and shoves it into me. And of course, what do? You grab it later when I learned how to do Bible work, and then that's what you do, just hand it to the person's face, and people will grab the thing, and that's what I did. And then he said, "What's it going to hurt?" And then I said I had my own church, completely lied. Well, I kind of had my own church, but I wasn't planning on going back. And I slammed the door on him and went back and sat down on the couch, started flipping through channels, and all of a sudden, that voice came back and said, "You should read the flyer." So I picked up the flyer, and on the front it said, "Revelation promises hope," and there was a collage of all these different people from all different ethnic groups, just happy and together. I'm like, that's interesting. I thought Christians were racist because all the ones I knew were. And so here they are together, and I'm like, it was, all of a sudden it was like something different. And I'm like, and then those, what's it going to hurt? What's it going to hurt? What's it going to hurt? And I'm like, too bad I blew them off. And I threw it down, and trying to ignore it, and the voice said, "You need to open it up and read it." So I pick it back up and I open it up, and it said, "Meet our speaker, ex-atheist, ex-punk rocker," like all the stuff that I'm resonating with. And he's like there in a suit holding the Bible. And mind you, I'm like wearing baggy pants, you know, graphic tees, wallet chain, driving a hearse. So this is goth punk atheist, and he's in a suit holding the Bible. And I'm thinking, what happened to that guy? I wouldn't mind just hearing one of these talks just to figure out what happened. Why would he go from this to that? And so I was like, oh, that's very interesting. No one would go with me, so why am I even looking at this? And so I threw it on the floor again. And so I'm watching channels, just trying to push it out of my mind. And finally said, "You need to read the whole flyer." Oh, so I pick it back up, open it up, and I'm reading the topics. If God's so good, why is the world so bad? Which is, as you saw, the big reason why I chose the path I chose. And then all these interesting subjects, I can't even remember all that. I remember being fascinated by like the Revelation stuff, like the Antichrist stuff, why there's so many churches, like the way the questions are phrased. It wasn't just like prophecy, but it was prophecy linked up with the existential doubts that I had about the church were all there in the topics. And I thought, this is very interesting. No one talks about this stuff. So I was like, I wouldn't mind going. And then I remembered my prayer. I'm like, oh. And then I thought, these people are crazy. Going around inviting people to that. And like, I'm like trying to, like, it's a wrestling in my head. And I finally said, okay. What if they're called?
I know you said they're crazy, but weren't you going to drive, remember?
Mind you, this is what I'm thinking. So, and I look at myself, I probably was crazy anyways. Literally, I mean, when you take that much acid, you're technically legally crazy. But, I lost my thought. Oh, anyways, I remember, okay, this is what happened. I thought, what if they're cold? What if they, like, I go there and they give me, like, Kool-Aid laced with cyanide? Like, I was, like, really glum my friends would not be caught dead with me going there. So I was like, okay, God, this is what we're going to do. If this is from you, you'll have the guy come back down the street, and he will take me to the meetings. But he needs to come back down by himself, and he needs to agree to take me to meetings, and I know this is where you want me to be. And so I go. I say that, make this deal with God, and I go and I sit on the front porch of my house. And I'm sitting there, and I'm waiting, and waiting, and waiting. And I remember, I used to sell this thing called World's Finest Chocolate, these little candy bars for school trips. And you go down the street selling these candy bars, and you don't go back down, because you've already been down the street. So I'm thinking, he's never going to come back down the street. This is so foolish. And so I get back up and I go and I open the door and I'm opening it. And I just said, God, I knew you didn't. And out of the corner of my eye, as I look back one final time, there is that young man walking down the street by himself. And so I go back and sit on the porch and wait for him to come. He comes by and said, hey, I read this flyer. I'd like to go to the meetings, but I don't have a ride. Will you come pick me up? And he said, sure thing, brother. And I'm like, brother? Like, look at me and look at you. I didn't tell him this, but I'm thinking in my head, we are not related at all. You're foreign. You are different. And so, anyways, he ended up taking me to the meetings. The meetings were halfway over. Back then they did 6-week meetings, so it was like not quite halfway over. It was over two. It was 2.5 weeks into the meetings. And so I went and was blown away, and the speaker was amazing. David Asher was the speaker. It was just absolutely incredible. And this is like back when he was young and wild, and he would run all over the stage. He can talk twice as fast as he does now, but he's calmed down quite a bit. So anyway, so I ended up going to these meetings, and they just blow me away. And after the first night, they would rip on my old church a lot, and I was like, why do you guys rip on this church so much? And the guy who took me to meetings, oh yeah, we need to catch you up. And so he got me a cassette tape, which even at that time, I'm like, I don't even have a cassette player. Like, I had to dig one out. So he gave me a cassette tape of meeting number 2, which is the statue meeting. And I love history. It's one of my favorite subjects. So I'm listening to this tape. And I'm like, yeah, Persia's next. And the preacher would say Persia's next. And I'm like, Greece beats Persia. Everyone knows that. And he would tell me that the Bible predicted Greece beats Persia. And then I was like, yeah, Rome beats Greece. And then he would say, the Bible says Rome beats Greece. So I got it because Rome just fell apart. There's no nation that conquers Rome. And then he said, yeah, Rome didn't get conquered, it was split up. And I'm like, what in the world? What kind of book is this? No human being could do that. And so at that point, I was like, okay, rewound the tape and played it 3 more times because I was like, that's crazy, and wanted to memorize that prophecy. And so I basically then accepted, I don't know who God is. I don't know this Jesus guy, but that Bible, that's special. And so I was like, I'm going to do whatever it says. And so I went to the meeting to that attitude. They gave me all the tapes. I listened to all the tapes in 2 days, got caught up. And then that Friday night, I was at the meeting, And he said that the next morning that they're going to give his testimony. The problem is they work Friday night, third shift. No way I could get up in time, stay up all day, go to church. So I said, I just can't go. And the guy that was taking me to the meetings, the guy that I met, he said, is that what you should be doing? I'm like, no, because I'm supposed to not work Friday night to Saturday night. And he's like, yeah, so what should you do? And I'm like, I'm going to call in and tell him I'm not working. I'm not even like a Christian yet. I haven't accepted salvation. I'm like, so I call up my work and I say, I'm not coming in tonight. You can fire me if you want. I don't care. I'm not working Friday night ever again. It's my holy day. Mind you, I was smoking pot the previous Friday night, so they know my reputation. They think it's weird, but I worked hard and I did a good job. They didn't want to lose me because third shift at the grocery store wasn't exactly the easiest spot to fill. So they said, listen, you can have all the Friday nights off, it's fine. So I was like, okay. So I kept my first Sabbath, and the speaker, David, gives his testimony, and what I thought, it felt like eternity. When I watched the tape later, it was about 30 seconds, but man, that 30 seconds lasts forever when he's making a call for baptism. And I remember, I heard a tape about this. You go to hell if you don't get baptized. So I turned to my friend, it's like, they got taken to meetings. I'm like, I need to get baptized if I want to go to heaven, right? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, I should probably do that. So I just stood up and went forward because I should get baptized. So a week later, I was baptized, became an Adventist, and yeah. Sorry. I talk with my hands. So, anyways, so I'm trying to look at the time and see what else I can tell you, because that's just the beginning. So much stuff had happened. Long story short, I went to the place where he got trained called Mission College, became a Bible worker. My parents ended up getting baptized a year after me. My brother gets baptized a year after that. He goes to the same school. My dad ended up going to the same school. We've all done stunts of Bible work. And some other cool things, the guy who came down the street and brought me to the meetings, he got lost. The meetings were in a suburb called Wyoming. I live in Walker. It's like not near each other. He literally just got confused. There was construction being done, so it messed him up on the main, on 131, the main highway that goes to Grand Rapids, so he got lost, pulled off, was driving down Lake Michigan Drive, wondering what he should do, and he sees my street, which is very inconspicuous. So the fact that he just saw it, and decided to turn down it, and said, hey, this looks like a good place to hand out flyers, and did it, completely lost. He didn't realize how long the street was, ran out of flyers, and said, oh man, you girls keep going, I'll run back and get more flyers at the right time. So, all these coincidences seem like providence to me. God had a plan, and he wanted me saved. So, that happened. While that was happening, my brother was actually on a canoe trip, and he knew that I was struggling. And so, the guy, the teacher at a public school decided, hey, I can't make you do this, but if you want, before breakfast, we're going to have a time of prayer, and you can pray. And he was praying for me that canoe trip. The problem is when he came back, all of a sudden I was in a different religion, and he thought it was strange, and that set him on a course where he started doing hard drugs. But I started praying for him. He gets baptized. Now he's a pastor, and I'm a pastor. He pastors at the Academy Church in Michigan, and I'm in seminary, and all these cool things have happened, traveling the world, then I did missionary work in Iceland and Norway, seen the Middle East, just crazy experiences. Went back to school to become a pastor, and while there, I didn't care about degrees or education at the time. I just wanted a piece of paper so I could pastor. And the other reason was like, this would be a good place to find a wife. So that was the goal, and they said that Andrews is the place of milk and honeys. So I went, and the first year there, I was, hanging out with my brother's crew because he went back, and I'm like, this is not going to work, so I'm just going to get involved. And so I ran for the religious vice president, just because I wanted to tell people that I thought Forest Chapel was like, the mark of the beast, and so forcing people to worship, and so that's what I ran on. And I got elected. I didn't think I would get elected. I got elected. And so I was like, oh no. So I'm elected in this position. And there's this girl that ends up being there. And she was great, but she had a boyfriend. And I was like, too bad she has a boyfriend. This would be really great. Well, she ended up dumping her boyfriend and going out with me, and then we're married. So it all worked out. And it was a bigger blessing than the degree, but I did love education. Went the pastor over near Detroit, and the whole time there I was hoping, man, I'd like to do my MDiv. But Michigan wasn't really sending people to MDiv. But the cool thing was that my wife applied for the Master's of Social Work, and because of that, they wanted to move me, so it was either Alpena, way up north, or MDiv. And I'm like, yeah, Alpena, no, let's go do the MDiv. Because she was accepted into the Master's of Social Work program, so we get to be there together. And it's just been a huge blessing, way life after Christ, way better than life before Christ. And pray for me. I applied for the PhD, trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do and what's next in life, but God's been good. And some thoughts. Evangelism works, doesn't have to look like exactly the way I have it in my case, but we do have a really cool message that appeals to the secular mind. Everyone I do and talk to about our doctrines or message, the pure stuff, not all the stuff piled on top of it, it's a beautiful message. The message that I was getting from other churches was downright horrible. That God is in control of all evil, and that literally they would tell me, well, you're just predestined to be this bad. It was hopeless. The message that we have is beautiful, it's logical, it's wonderful, when it's told right. And so I just encourage there's people like me out there that are literally dying to hear it. And so find a way to communicate it. So.
Amen.
Let me pray, and I usually just take a couple moments for questions because there's so many loose ends that sometimes people have questions. So let's pray and then we'll take questions. Well, Heavenly Father, I just thank you so much for the blessing you've done in my life. And I was asked to come here this particular Sabbath. I believe you lined it up so that people here can be blessed. Whether it's to really see the beauty of the message or how contagious it can be, may that inspire us to just fall in love with you and let it spread. Because I believe that there are other people out there that are worse off than I am that need to hear it. And somehow, in some way, just use us. I pray for this in Jesus' name. Amen. Any questions? Was it clear? Anything that was not clear?
First question. You kind of described the aesthetics that held life together when you were not in the church, God, and kind of all of the things that inform that. In transitioning back into a church communal space, have you found an aesthetic that can compete with that power? You see what I'm saying? Especially when it comes to music, visuals. Because I'm hearing the description, I'm like, that's easy, right? I hear what you're saying with the music and all that. Is the church just leaving kind of a vacant space with that, or have you found things that genuinely hold your attention as well?
The music, there's nothing that can compete with it. But the weird thing was I listened to like the really heavy stuff and I listened to classical. That was my taste.
Yeah.
The heavy stuff to pump me up, the classical to wind me down. So what I found that the church aesthetic, what I was looking for was to be, like I'm all wound up all week and I wanted to be wound down. So I ended up being attracted early on to like what you would consider boring worship because that's what I needed, and sometimes that's needed. So like really rocky music would make me want to crave things that were, it would make my appetite for things that I didn't want to have. But I'm now in a position, I don't think that's necessarily the case for everybody. That's just where I was coming from. But I found no competition. In fact, it just made me crave the world. However, that was me. Other people, they need to be pumped up because their week's so rough. They need that peppiness to give them the energy. which is where I'm at now after being converted since 2000. I'm more, okay, I need that. So that's why I think different churches, we need multiple flavors in the worship experience. They said it because people are on their journey or at different parts. So, but nothing competed with that. I mean, if I would plant a church for secular people, I wouldn't have music at all.
We were just talking about that.
Yeah, I was just talking, I would actually get rid of music.
Yeah.
And I would start just engaging with the word. I wouldn't even have a sermon. I would just almost be just like study, like just teaching people. It would just be a teaching, but not like engaging, asking questions, looking into things. I literally would have like a bunch of tools, computers open. Let's just study together and figure out what it says and what it means for your life. And then incorporate elements, this is if I'm planning it, incorporate elements that the community was ready to incorporate. Because man, when I walked in the church, I didn't sing. I sat in the back and sometimes I would skip the song service because I thought it was just too weird. Except for hymn number 12 in the Adventist hymnal, because it was based on Beethoven's Ninth, and that was one of my favorite songs. So whenever they did hymn request, they knew what I was asking for, because Beethoven's Ninth literally was one of the songs that I would use to calm me down when I was tripping, when I was having a flashback.
Yeah.
So the hymn number 12 is a special spot in my heart, because Joyful, Joyful, we adore thee, because when it was even the secular version, it was helping me. So that's my take on that. I don't know if that helps you.
I was just gonna say, because we're talking about planting the secular church, because we're married and so we're gonna do it together. We're do it. So we're gonna say that one of the things that we want to do no music in an environment like that is because they're secular and they don't want to sing to a God. At that point, they don't even know the God. So what are they singing to?
Okay.
So like, what am I gonna sit there to sing? I'm here to know and learn what you are teaching from the Bible, or what you're believing. And then after we establish a relationship with whatever God, Jesus, right? Then they'll be able to even want to sing to a God.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why.
Because there's so many cultural presuppositions that go into art expressions that, yeah, by the time it gets going, you lose half the crowd. It's gone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
And not that I think music is great and it needs to be part of the Christian walk. I just think that when you're trying to reach people that are at a certain level, our culture back in the day, like in Luther's day, you would sing in the bar.
Yeah.
You would sing you would have congregational, quote unquote, secular singing.
Yeah.
Where we don't have that. You go to a concert, you sit, and when the people, like I remember I was in a mosh pit and these jocks grabbed me and they're like, "Why aren't you singing?" And I'm like, I paid tickets to hear them, not hear you. You know, like, and I was looking at them, you don't belong here. You know, like, you were preppy, get out of here, you know, like, and then the music kicked in and I like went wild on them and then they stopped singing. So anyways, but so like, we don't have a culture in a lot of places where that's kind of done. So someone who's really secular is going to come in and think it's weird that everyone sings. And then even then, like in the church I grew up, it wasn't cool to sing, so all the guys would just sit there. So I never learned how to sing, even though I was brought up in church, because it wasn't cool. At least in the church I was like, only the girls sing. Which is so dumb, because then you learn how to sing, and then when you get to high school, then all the girls liked it. But, you know, when you're 6th grade, they don't tell you that. So that's good? All right. One more prayer. Oh, Heavenly Father, just thank you so much. In the question and answer time, if I said anything that was not from you, lessen its importance. If anything was from you, let it be a seed and bring forth fruit. I pray for this in Jesus' name. Amen.
I hope it blessed each one of you guys that this message blessed me. I wish you had more today just to listen, that they can go through things
for our outreach program and for our community, that people are blessed and that we are blessed as well.
That's what I had last night.
I was gonna pray for the afternoon staff and everything.
We're part of an organization called Greater Youth Movement from Harbor Hope, it's in Benson Harbor. So we have a children's program every Saturday. So today we're gonna have the third to last children's program. So just pray that the Holy Spirit goes before us. So when we get there, all the children are there, and God really blesses, and it'll be an awesome experience, and like all the good stuff. I just pray for all the good stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Prayer request was for my son and some of the youth from my church. They went to South Indiana, and the Sunday the youth program going on right now. The number also the steps of Jesus Christ. So most of our youth have gone there. So I'm hoping they have a good experience while they're there. Can you bow our heads and pray? Our kind and loving Father, thank you, Lord, for this Sabbath. Thank you, Lord, for this message. We pray that whatever is preached to us, that it may touch each one of us, dear Lord. Lord, we pray that as we leave this place, we pray for safe travels, dear Lord, and we pray for the other people who will be driving next to us who will drive safely, dear Lord. Lord, we also pray for the children's program this afternoon, dear Lord. May you be both organizers and the key that they may all feel your spirit surrounding them. May they have lots of fun and enjoy the spiritual as they worship you, dear Lord. We also pray for the kids who are on Anderson, Indiana. May you be with each one of them, dear Lord. May they feel your Holy Spirit, your presence, dear Lord. Father, we thank you for all the marvelous things you have done today. Thank you, Lord, for your love that you have revealed to us, and for the love that we share together as your body. We pray for all the words that you have sown into our hearts this day. Watch over them, protect them. May they take root and produce wonderful things, things of beauty and great blessings to many. And as we leave this place, thank you that we walk with us. May we be alert to your prompting. May we live your endless love for your kingdom and the power and the glory. I also pray, Lord, for the food that we are about to take. May you bless each hand as I prepare it. May we nourish our souls, dear Lord. We thank you, dear Lord, for this Sabbath and for always loving us. For you say, where there is one or two, that you will dwell among each one of us, dear Lord. We thank you, Lord, for everything you've done and for the word of God you've blessed us today, dear Lord. For praying us all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
I'm not gonna use that because I speak loud enough. So this is a little unusual, but I feel very, very strongly that this is something I should say today. But I was blessed to be part of a fundraiser on Thursday night it's called Crushed But Not Broken. And it is a lady who went through abuse bad enough that the last time she was abused, her back was almost broken. So she's had 3 back surgeries, is disabled. But she's doing this fundraiser because she was working in homes that they were not able to bring God into. So God is what saved her from her abuse. So I've been struggling, if I can attest to this, the last week or so with myself in my walk. So I go into this fundraiser. It kept me busy. You know, I made 300 cupcakes, 40 pounds of chicken, boiled like 50 pounds of noodles. So, you know, it kept me busy off of what I myself was dealing with. But I go into this room of these people. And at the end of it, the thing that really got me was at the end, this woman told her story, which how brave she was to get up and tell her story. But she asked the people, and this is a room full of police officers, Congress people, like high-ranked people, people I've seen in our community. And she asked, she goes, I'm asking because I want people to realize that you have no idea what someone is going through when they're not with you. So she goes, if you're brave enough to stand up as a person that's been abused, and you're brave enough to show people who you are, she goes, it's going to change how people think. So one, bless the bravery that these people had to stand up. But these are people I dealt with as a bank teller, as someone at a store that I bought groceries for, that I may have thought was cranky or not the nicest person, or a lot of people I've heard comment, you know, how people dress or what they look like or their hair's not made. But these women were brave enough to stand up and admit that they've been in an abusive situation. But the thing that got me the most was the fear that they had that people would not accept them in church, in the community, their family. So a lot of these people stay silent because they fear what we are going to do, especially in the Christian world. This woman has dealt with these people that fear that God is not going to love them, and that's a fear that I felt myself by what people say to me. So here's these people that are being battered and abused, watching their kids be battered and abused, and they fear walking into a church, or they fear even interacting with a Christian person. And I think that's where we can make a difference. I think that we need to get to know the people that are around us. Like you talking about the man that came back. I think we need to be those people that see that these people may be off. You know, they like you. I mean, you were screaming. Somebody help me. I think sometimes we get so busy in our own lives and our own mess that we forget to look at the people that are screaming around us. And I just hope that all of us can remember that the next time we see somebody, and maybe instead of judging them, we can be that hand that maybe helps them up.
Amen.
Thank you for letting me share that today.
Amen.
All right. Thank you. Food.